Today, we're looking at a turquoise ink by Montegrappa, appropriately named Turquoise. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. And if you like videos like that, I would invite you to subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, and there's timestamps down below so that if you are in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Sailor My First pen with a medium fine nib. I wrote with it for a day, and I used it to take the notes for this video. In order to standardize, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper in this first writing sample. There will be more writing samples on different papers later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it comes in a vial that looks like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is slightly, well, it's about the same color, slightly lighter in a bunch of spots. It has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer quite a bit of shading. Look at over, starts much lighter, goes to darker, hits the mid-tone. Brown starts darker and gets lighter. So there is shading that's available in here. Even the 6, it starts lighter and works its way darker through the whole movement. 6 seconds to dry. The extra fine is about the same tone as the medium is about the same tone as the extra fine. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading that's going on. Fox starts as darker, gets lighter, gets darker again. Brown, while written incredibly sloppy, you see the light, the dark, the lighter come in again, a very dark to light again. So very sloppy, but it is showing some nice shading. Over, starts lighter, gets darker. 7 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both, shows plenty of color variation, and we get it in the writing samples. Tomoe River. No bleeding. Not too bad Tomoe River ghosting. It's less, but it's because it's such a light colored ink. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub, just a little lighter, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. The scrubby's slightly darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub. Medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 14 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows no color variation, and we don't expect it. Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is a little darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show that we should get some color variation looking far left to far right, although we're really not getting it in the writing. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see that this is a turquoise dye. It is fleeing the water immediately, going straight up and gathering up at the top. Now the one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. We do see a faint turquoise line across the bottom, making you think it might want to stay around. I don't suspect it will, looking at that. And it separates itself again from that line, from the little bit that I managed to get into the filter paper, and is really gathering at the top of where it moved to. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I was very surprised by how well this did based on the chromatography. There's no reason to worry about using this as a note taker if you highlight, because none of it really budged. It did fantastic. Now, water is starting to reactivate and lift it, but there's a lot more left behind than I really expected. That line on the second chromatography is what we're seeing here. Now pen flush is completely breaking it up and removing it. You start to see the white of the page coming through with it sitting there just for 30 seconds. So pen flush is all that you need to get this out of your pen. The 1/3 bleach solution, you're not going to need it, but it does completely obliterate it off the page, but you don't need that here. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Now I'm going to link a video where I show how I test it and how I calculate the data. Montegrappa's Turquoise has a viscosity of 2.14, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples. Now for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Montegrappa's Turquoise has an average dry time of 9 seconds, making this a faster drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Montegrappa's Turquoise, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Now this is a very nice turquoise, and so a dark black was what I felt a good choice to not draw attention away from this. So I went with Noodler's Bernanke Black. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, black and red, and white lines paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia paper to see what kind of tone change we may get for putting this onto a yellow backdrop. Now the interesting thing is this turquoise on the white paper is slightly blue leaning, where the turquoise on the left is very definitely green leaning. And you might expect some of that with the whole yellow and blue makes green. It's a note for professional environments if you use yellow paper. Black and red notebooks. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. Now the extra fine is slightly lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It has spots of shading, like brown starts dark and gets light. Quick starts darker, gets lighter, gets darker again. Jumps starts lighter, gets dark at the P, and then lighter into the S. So it's very nice, and 3 seconds to dry. Medium is much darker than the extra fine, certainly darker than the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine, far left to far right, does show us some color variation, and we do get it. The medium shows us none, and we got none. And white lines. Another ink that's really not doing very well for it. The extra fine's not horrible, but I don't know about using the back of the page. The stub wasn't horrible. The medium was horrible. A lot of ghosting for it. The 1.1 has some feathering all over it. A whole bunch of tiny little feathering that gives it the just kind of a little blurry look, especially if you look at turquoise. So there's a lot of feather, but you can read it at least, you know, and they're not huge feathers, but you can read it. No spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 2 seconds to dry, best performing here. Medium is quite a bit darker than everything else on the page. The medium has a lot of feathering all over it. Look at what's going on in the word quick. It's making the letter K look bumpy. There is some spread. That medium comes out more like a broad. It has no halo sheen, no shading, 3 seconds to dry. Scrubby of the extra fine, far left to far right, does show some color variation, although we got none. The medium shows none, and we got none. And that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Montegrappa Turquoise? I found the color very interesting to look at. It was easy to read on the page. I certainly expected a lot more shading than I got, which left me feeling like I was missing something. But the great color that it was putting down sort of made up for that. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience? It's a very nice tone, but I found that a wetter, medium, or broad made it just a slight bit darker, which was more pleasant to look at than the already pleasant tone that's there. If you've enjoyed this video, remember, I like thumbs up, you like thumbs up, everybody likes thumbs up. Unless you didn't like it, then give me the thumbs down. Both are good. Thanks for watching.